Welcome back to NewsMaker Live with Laura. If it's Wednesday, it's NewsMaker Live, where we make your stories our stories. Before the break, I told you that I'd be having a guest, and we'd be talking a little bit about gender parity. Now, what exactly is gender parity? Well, there's what is called the Gender Parity Index, and it's a socioeconomic index, usually designed to measure the relative access of things such as education of males and females. And in its simplest form, it is calculated as the quotient of the number of females by the number of males enrolled in any given stage of education, primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever. It is used by international organizations, particularly in measuring the progress of developing countries. With me this evening is Miss Catherine Sillies of Raise Your Voice, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about her organization, Raise Your Voice, what they do, and more about their calendar of activities for the year. Now, I'm sure you would remember Miss Sillies, or at least in your subconscious, you should remember Raise Your Voice from last year when they staged this march against violence against women, to end violence against women. So Miss Sillies is here representing Raise Your Voice, and she's going to tell us a little bit about Raise Your Voice, what they do, gender parity, the activity that they have coming up on Friday, and their calendar of activities for the year, or at least up to March, which is the month where we celebrate International Women's Day. Good evening, Miss Sillies, and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Let me speak about our organization first. The name is Raise Your Voice and Lucia Incorporated. Our mandate is to assist women and children, most importantly victims of rape, of domestic violence, of child abuse, and a range and a number of other things. We were formed in February of 2014. We have quite a few ladies who we sit and we plan as to what we do and how we do it. We have on the 25th of November last year, we staged a march to recognize International Day to End Violence Against Women. We always add children because we always feel if women get victimized, then the children are also victimized, and men to a certain extent. So we had this march. We have a declaration that we have publicized quite extensively, which speaks to the social services, the justice system, and things that would really make it easier for women to get access to justice and access to services which rightly is being provided by government agencies. We've moved from that, and we are now looking towards International Women's Day. So we've scheduled a number of activities leading up to March 8th. The first activity is a town hall meeting, which will be in Mikud at the Mikud Multipurpose Center. That is on Friday, the 29th of January, from 6 o'clock in the evening. At that meeting, we are going to be, at subsequent meetings, the agenda going to be consistent, because what we are doing 5 meetings, 5 different parts of the island. We want the information to be consistent. It is our hope that we can educate women as to their rights, their obligations, their responsibilities. So we're going to speak about signs and what you would do if you in a situation where there's domestic violence in the family, there is child abuse, a member of the family or somebody gets raped, or there are issues that needs to be set. It's a range of issues. Families have all kinds of issues. So we're going to educate women as to what they should do. Then we're going to go further and speak about what do you do when you are seeking child support. What do you do if you living in a common law relationship, you're not married, and you know you're having problems, you don't want to just get up and walk away because you've been in this relationship for quite some time. You need to get something out of it. The law, as it was written, and we always joke and say the law was written by men, because the number of the things you see, it really is favorable to men. For example, if you were to be in a common law relationship, whether you paid half of the property or not, the fact that your name is not on it and you let the man go ahead and do everything means you have to go to the court, file a civil suit, and fight for your share. Then you have child support. You have a woman getting $200 to support a child. If you were to check what you get for $200 today, everybody know this is wrong, but nobody's asking for the law to be changed. This has to be changed. So we need to get women mobilized for them to ask that this law is changed. Then we want to speak about divorce, because sometimes you go through divorce, and I know quite a people who go through divorce, and sometimes it's a very horrifying situation. The men go out of their way to make sure that women walk away from the relationship with nothing, and it's a big problem for women. We want to speak about, when you're living in a common law relationship, what are your responsibilities, what are your obligations, what are you expecting? For example, if you're in a common law relationship and a partner has died, you don't just run to the bank and say you're going to get what he has, you can sell his vehicle. No, you can't. In law, the assets of somebody goes to their oldest sibling or their mother, not to a common law wife, unless he has left a will. So we need to educate women about their rights so that they may be able to do the right thing. So when crunch time comes, they don't have to be running here and there, and then at the end of the day they have absolutely no representation. They don't know who to go to, they don't know what to do, and they end up, after a lifetime of living in a relationship, of spending a lot of money, because we ladies like to spend money. We go to town, we buy things for the house, we spend a lot of money taking care of the house, we buy a lot of things for our partners, and at the end of the day we come out with nothing. So we need the government of St. Lucia, we need the Ministry of Legal Affairs, we need the women who are responsible, have positions of power. We're talking about the female parliamentarians. We're talking about an oversupply of women in the public service who has the power that can actually lobby and advocate to get the things done, but they don't. So we took it upon ourselves to say that there are certain things that needs to change so that women can get their fair share of whatever it is they have contributed to. We want to ensure that the women from Dennery, from Mikud in the first instance, will come out at 6 o'clock on Friday and get educated, get empowered, get to strengthen their convictions that if a situation arises, I know what to do, I know how to get it done. The second part of this thing, we want to educate them as to how to get service. Most of them will call you and they tell you, I went to social service, I went to the family court, I went to the police, and I didn't get good response. Sometimes they don't even know what they're going and look for. And sometimes they get treated badly as well. So we want to let them know what you do, how you go, how you address people, how you present yourself when you go and make a complaint about something, how you present yourself if you go for an interview for a job, and how you present yourself when you want something done. You cannot just go and behave as if you don't know if the left is on the right, if the right is on the left, and expect people will attend to you. People will treat you how you presented yourself. We need to let ladies know, when you go and you need your work, something done, you have to go and behave and act and present yourself in a manner that people will respect you and you will get what you want done. We are always concerned about the volume of complaints when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to child abuse, when it comes to rape, when it comes to crimes against women and children. And while our work may not be very public, I mean, sometimes from 6 o'clock in the morning you get a call and you have to do so many things to help people that sometimes you ask yourself, well, what do the social services, what do the agencies that the government has dedicated to do stuff for women and for children and for the citizens as a whole, you have to ask yourself, what exactly do they do? Because people come to you with the kind of complaints people come to you, like public servants don't want to serve people, or they serve you because they know you, they serve you because you're a friend of a friend. But people must remind themselves daily as public servants that I am here to serve the citizens of St. Lucia. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter creed, it doesn't matter color, it doesn't matter race and economic status. Now this brings us to gender parity, which is in fact the theme for International Women's Day 2016. Now gender parity, when we research, it referred to education, but in our deliberation we felt that we had a pretty stable education system that was equal for all, and as a matter of fact we find that women do a lot better than men in education. So we've tweaked our gender parity to include equality for women with respect to laws, with respect to employment, with respect to what is required to change so that women can be equal to men in this country. Women are not equal to men no matter what you believe. And some women feel it is okay to. I complain that there are certain things that should not be. If a man is not going to pay, why should a woman? And there are some women that will tell you, well, it works with me, I don't care, you're always there. It is not okay. It should not be that way. And we as women, and even the men, should really work towards having a country where people are equal. We want women to stand up and say, yes, I have a big job and I am a boss and thing, but they're not equal. They go home and they have no power in their home. They may have power at work because they've studied, they've qualified, they get a job, but they go home and they don't have the kind of power they have at work at home.
Now let me just let me just interject here, and let's just touch on some of the things that you mentioned. Starting with the last one, where you see some in our society, we see that there's gender parity within the education system.
Yes.
So we see, as you rightly pointed out, sometimes we see there's a higher ratio of women
to men, yes.
Yes, being educated to, and then they get themselves qualified, and then they get the jobs, and then they have the power at work. But oftentimes you find that some of these women still complain that yes, they get the jobs and they get the positions, but they have to work twice as hard as, say, a male counterpart to exert that kind of respect in the positions. And also you find there is still an issue of equal pay for equal work, where you find there may be women who are getting up to at least 25% less than the male counterpart, and that's just one aspect of it. How can we bridge that divide?
I'm not sure about how do we bridge it, but I can tell you that with a little research, we found out that pay equality was equal within the public service. If a man got it, a woman got it. I am not sure for contract workers, but I know for mainstream public servants is equal. I am not sure. We're trying to do some research within the private sector, but people are very secretive. They don't want to tell you what their salary is. It's like, I don't know what is important about hiding how much money you make. Or so you tell them, how much would an accountant make in your country? And they don't want to tell you. But we have not been able to verify that men and women are not receiving equal pay in the private sector. I know in the public sector the pay is equal, because if at grade 13 you're getting $10, a woman at grade 13 will get the same $10.
Okay, now you also mentioned about when you go to the public offices like the civil services, and then people don't treat you equally. You get served based on who you know. Or now, to my mind, when you go to, say, Inland Revenue or whatever, and then the person who's supposed to be attending to you is treating you as a woman badly, and you're here with your child, To me, that sends a message to your child that if these people who are being paid through the public purse, which is our taxpayers' monies, cannot respect you enough to give you the treatment, how, as a child, can I demand that same respect? Can I demand my rights to be honored and respected as a child? And how does that play on the psyche of a child growing up? We see in our society, we have young people who are pretty much alone to themselves. They're lawless. They're doing all sorts of things. They go to school. They come from school. They don't go straight home. They always some sort of brouhaha in the city center with school kids. Can we say that there is a correlation between the way children see their moms being treated and the way they conduct themselves, or the way they treat women or girls?
If we were to take the city center as an example, I don't know if I would be able to make a differentiation, because I'll tell you why. I see the girls behaving as bad as the boys, and the boys behave as bad as the girls. But I would say that because of the age people make children now, especially women, very young, sometimes 12, 13, 14, 15. And I often ask myself, how can a child go into the government hospital, because you only make children at the public hospital, and she is not yet 16, she has a child, and no one asks a question? In my research, I found that the law was when a child under the age of 16, I think, gets to the Victoria or the St. Jude's or any hospital, and has a child, a report must be made, an investigation must be triggered. Why is that child having a child? She cannot have a child. She has not attained the age of consent.
In effect, she doesn't have control over her
body. She doesn't have effect. And the law is there to protect them. For example, I often ask myself, so who reports to who and what is done with what? Or have we gotten to the point where so many people making children under the age of consent that it really doesn't matter? Now you have a lot of young women. I walk into town and I see young women, they have young girls, young boys, small children they take into school. And I mean, they dress, and I look at their dress and I'm saying, but what example, I'm saying this to myself, I'm saying, what example are you setting for your child? If your child sees you always like that, what is it do you expect? Unless sometimes you may just grow an odd child that is very conservative and may decide, you know, I don't want to do this. But generally, you find children copy or modeling after what they see as often. So I have my opinion on this thing is because of the age people have children, not necessarily the under 16s. There are people who are 25 who are as irresponsible as the 8-year-olds, number one. Then number two, you find that we have, because of our tendency to study in North America, when we study, we bring in the American culture, the North American culture into the school system, into the social services, and we try to offload it on children. It is not within our culture. So you find you have that clash, and children go ahead and they do what they want. It's fine. And, you know, people say, oh, now they don't have the extended family and they don't have, everybody has to work. I have 2 children. I always worked. I was a single parent. I am still a single parent. But I decided that I was going to be the mother the day when I left the Victoria Hospital. I decided I was going to be the mother. I was going to be in charge, and I was going to decide what was right and what was wrong.
What are some of the stopgap measures that Raise Your Voice can implement to assist those young mothers that you have you've identified? Because at the end of the day, they're only going to give off what they know. So what I know is what I'm going to give off to my children. Because even with in my situation, my mom always said I did the best I could with what I knew. So she built on what her mom, the values her mom passed on to her, plus what she was able to get out of mingling or interacting with other people and traveling and that kind of thing, and raised her kids that way. And you expect that the same is going to, so it's a cycle. You build on the foundation that you have. But when the foundation that you have is already crumbling, it's shaky at best, how can we as a society help with those people to strengthen their foundation, or at least create a stronger foundation for their offspring?
It's a vicious cycle, and you find the mother, you find the child, you find the grandchild, and you find it is so hard to break, because this is what they know from the time they were born. Sometimes we try, sometimes I have somebody, they have so many issues that you decide, well, you know what? You don't know how you're going to bring that person to understand your way, because I was raised at the time. My mother was very strict. She never spoke loud, but once she gave you one look, you knew your place, you knew what to do, and you knew you couldn't get away with that. I don't see people having that kind of control over their children. I more see children having control over their parents. And this is creating a problem, because you find the roles are reversed. So you find the children are standing up to their parents and the children backing down, because people are always looking for their children to love them more than is necessary. And this causes a problem, because I have a joke and I say, if your children not thinking of killing you, that woman, you are not doing your job. Your daughter and your son does not have to be your best friend, but you have to make sure they're disciplined. Because at the end of the day, you have all the social services overwhelmed. You have boys training center overwhelmed. You have the school teachers overwhelmed, because we as parents have not done our jobs as we should. We have given the children the role of parent, and we back down to them because we want them to be nice, and we want them to like us. Your child have to respect you, and your child have to understand your mother. They don't have to like you, because the way things are going now, it is time that people have to take a strong decision. It's not going to be nice. You have to do what you have to do. I one day had the experience of being in a particular place, and a young girl jumped up on her mother and started beating her. And I'm like, is this for real? And she said, that's what the child does. The child beats her. She don't know what to do.
You're talking about an an under 10-year-old.
Maybe a 13, 14-year-old beat up her mother, and it was in a government agency. And that has stayed in my mind, and I'm like, what would a mother do? What could that woman have done with a child from both to that age, that child feels she can beat her mother with impunity and no fallback? And I'm asking myself, why have we lost our way in this country with our children? Because if our children has lost their way, then the country has lost its way. Because you find we getting older, we will die out, and the children are going to grow up and be the parents and be the adults and be the leaders. And the responsibility always falls on a woman to be the one who raised the children. Fathers are always and I always tell myself, if I had a partner to raise my children, I don't think I would be able to be the mother that I am now. Because if I say no, I am not going to change my mind in 10 years. It's no. Men have a tendency to say yes, no. They play children play two ends against the middle with another. When you have a relationship with a mother and a father, and one pulling this way, one pulling this way. I didn't have that. When I say no, I say no. And my children know they can't come back and ask me and think they done too. We need to go back to the time where people really raise their children and think their children. Going to work is not an excuse for raising your children. I have left St. Lucia and traveled to write exams, to do different things, and I had somebody to make sure my children were ready. They were dropped off at school. They had food to eat. They were supervised, and I tell them, I do not want you to go outside while I'm not there, and they wouldn't go outside. So we need to take control of our children in this country, or else we are not going to be able to progress.
But it's almost like you're advocating for a single parent unit to raise the kids. But you would admit that the role of the father is very important as well. And even though you have two parents, you could still have raise your kids and discipline them. I was raised in a two-parent household, and there was nothing I would go to my mother and say, "Mommy, I want," without her discussing with my dad. And the first thing she would say to buy herself time, "Mommy, can I?" "Go and ask your dad." And so I would trek along as a little girl, go to Daddy, can I? And he would go to your mom. And I'd say, "Well, I just went to Mommy, and Mommy said go to Daddy." And then he would say, "Okay, I will tell you later." And it was growing up, then I learned it was their mechanism for buying time to discuss it with each other first, to come up with a decision. So Mommy's not going to say yes and then Daddy says no, or Daddy says yes and then Mommy says no. They're going to discuss it and they're going to come up to a unified. So there is a way of dealing with it, I think. But we'll take a break. We're due for a break. When we come back, we'll have more with our discussion with Miss Sillis on Raise Your Voice, their calendar of activities, raising children, single parents, households, the works. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.